scripture reading this morning is found in the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 4, verses 5 to 12. 2 Corinthians 4, verses 5 to 12. For we do not preach ourselves, but Jesus Christ as Lord, and ourselves as your servants, for Jesus' sake. For God, who said, "Let light shine out of darkness," made his light shine in our hearts to give us the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Christ. But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. We are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body. For we who are alive are always being given over to death for Jesus' sake, so that his life may be revealed in our mortal body. So then, death is at work in us, but life is at work in you. The gospel reading this morning is found in the book of Mark, chapter 2, verses 23 to chapter 3, verse 6. Mark 2, 23 to 3, verse 6. One Sabbath, Jesus was going through the grain fields, and as his disciples walked along, they began to pick some heads of grain. The Pharisees said to him, "Look, why are they doing that? It's unlawful on the Sabbath." He answered, "Have you ever read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need? In the days of Abiathar, the high priest, he entered the house of God and ate the consecrated bread, which is lawful only for priests to eat, and he also gave some to his companions. Then he said to them, 'The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord, even of the Sabbath.'" Another time he went into the synagogue, and a man with a shriveled hand was there. Some of them were looking for a reason to accuse Jesus, so they watched him closely to see if he would heal him on the Sabbath. Jesus said to the man with the shriveled hand, "Stand up in front of everyone." Then Jesus asked them, "Which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill?" But they remained silent. He looked around at them in anger, and deeply distressed at their stubborn hearts, said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out, and his hand was completely restored. Then the Pharisees went out and began to plot with the Herodians how they might kill Jesus. May God bless to us the understanding of these words.
For our story time, I would invite the younger members of our church family. We have our carpenter's glue and hammer and 4 of the nails from the church in Cardinal, and we've been talking about building the church. Last week we talked about building the church on babies and children. Not that we start hammering into them, but that they are a part of the church. So I have something else in the box today. Let me show you what I have in the box. Clothes? Clothes. Didn't it sound like clothes? A Big Give t-shirt. Now, Big Give was a project that we worked on yesterday where we had a yard sale. But it was a free yard sale, so everything that was set out, people could come and take. And so people did. There was lots of stuff, and at the end of the day, there was stuff, but not lots and lots. And people took what they needed. And the idea was, as churches, we're giving to people in the community to help them out. We also gave out hot dogs. Hot dog. If somebody came and gave you a hot dog, would you be happy? Yeah, me too. Do you know how long a hot dog is? Well, the number of hot dogs and sausages that we gave out yesterday, if you started down in a line out the door, down the street, past my house, almost to the water, about 600 hot dogs. Can you imagine what 600 hot dogs look like? Now, I would not want 600 hot dogs stretched on the floor and down the road. That would be silly. But all together, it worked to help build people up and encourage them. Gifts of stuff that they could take for free. Hot dogs at the table. Face painting, bouncy castles. Yeah, just given away. And this is part of how we build the church, by being God's people in the world. So now we're going to do something. Oh yeah. I'm going to ask you to do something. Usually we think about building the church and then we sing a hymn. But while the rest of the congregation is singing a hymn, I want you to build a church. Now, you might not finish building the church today, but over the next number of weeks, each time we have a story, we're going to build a little bit of the church. So you're going to have to work together. You need to use all these pieces, and when you run out of those pieces, I have others, I won't pour them out today. One, all together, make one building out of that. So you do that, and we're going to sing a hymn. I have a question for you as we begin our time of meditation, reflection, and challenge. Keeping in mind that a Presbyterian visitation is coming up, would you consider our congregation to be above average? Of course. Yes, this is what I'm hearing. Great. Let me share with you something I discovered from the internet this past week, that the average length of sermons in churches is actually on the rise to just about 38 minutes. And you just told me we're an above average congregation. So, we'll see. Perspective is a wonderful thing. I remember, being much younger, climbing on top of the tool shed at the cottage with an umbrella in my hand. I was going to jump off holding an umbrella, and the science says that the umbrella will catch the wind and slow me down a little bit. I knew that my mother said, and she did say this, don't jump off the shed with an umbrella. It seems like a strange thing for a mother to say, but she did say it. And here's the problem. For my mother, that was an absolute principle. For me, it was a guideline. The church has been great over the years of offering what they would consider to be absolute principles. Not simply guidelines, but things that need to be done in order to fulfill all that God needs us to do. Not guidelines, but absolutes. And it begins with the 10 Commandments. So here we're going to go through it really quickly. Can you name me the 10 Commandments? Honor your father and your mother. Number 5, I'm going to cross it off my list so that we don't duplicate. Pardon me? Remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. And we know what that means, don't we? The Sabbath is what day? Saturday. The Sabbath is actually Saturday, folks. As Christian people, if we're serious about this, we remember Saturday and keep it holy, and we worship on Sunday. Just a thought. Any other commandments you can remember?
Father and mother.
Father and mother. Don't steal. You shall not steal. Have no other gods before me. That's number 1. Okay, no adultery and no coveting. And we all know what coveting is. To want something somebody else has, but it's more than just want, almost to the point of we'll do something to get it. Okay, hold on to that thought for just a minute. We will get there. 1, 2, 3. We've crossed off 5 of the 10 Commandments. No other gods we got? No idols. Okay. I heard murder. There we go. There's still 2. Okay, well, we'll leave it at that. You can mull over 2. These have often been proclaimed as absolutes. In the New Testament, we've turned it around a little bit, focusing on Jesus' words. You probably can tell me what the golden rule is. Do unto others as you want them to do to you. Jesus says this is the meaning of the law of Moses and the teaching of the prophets. And then Jesus summarized all the commandments by putting them into 2 commandments. And we got a glimpse of it from Bill just a minute ago. Love God and love others. Your whole heart, mind, and soul and strength. Absolutes according to the church. But the more I read them, the more I discover these are not rules of absolutes. None of the rules that we have in the Bible in this vein really apply as absolute rules for church. Now let me back off. Did the minister just say that the 10 Commandments are not absolute? We don't need them in church? We probably don't need them in church. We need to take them out of church. And as you read the 10 Commandments and you think about the Golden Rule and the 2 Great Commandments, they're not about structures that build a church. They're not about things that make worship work smoothly and well. They are all things that have to do with living in relationship with people and relationship with God. Rules tend to be behavior modification type things, and the motivation is always to change behavior to a desired end. And in rules, there's not much room for life, and there's virtually no room for grace. We see Jesus getting into a confrontation about the Sabbath law and Sabbath rest, about the rules of religion versus the spirit of relationship. Jesus turned the religious people of the day upside down, and they didn't like it. Because for him, the intent of God's law was to promote love for God and love for others. Not to make sure that when you received communion, you took the cup with your left hand and put it back in with your right hand. This was practiced in the early church, and it's still a part of our service book that I never noticed until quite recently. So I have done communion wrong as a leader for almost 35 years. I guess I'm in trouble. You see, the purpose that Jesus had for all these things was to give life, was to share life, so that God would make a difference in our lives and others. So he had no problem healing on the Sabbath, even though the law from Deuteronomy says it's unlawful to heal on the Sabbath unless it's a life or death situation. And this is what they told Jesus. What you have done by healing the man on the Sabbath is against the law. And what were they going to do about it? We're told, and they went out and plotted to kill him. I think killing Jesus would be against one of the 10 Commandments. But you see, it didn't serve their purpose of religion, what this Jesus was doing. Relationship, as Jesus knew it, is not behavior modification, but is modification of behavior because the heart has changed. And it's all about life, and it's all about grace, and it's all about freedom, and it's all about living a relationship with God and others. Yesterday, people were quite amazed at something called a free yard sale. You mean it's really free? Yes, it was really free. The food was really free. The playing on the bouncing castles was really free. Without any ulterior motives. We didn't say we're giving you a ticket to come to church tomorrow so that you can bounce on the bouncy castle. People did ask, well, why is it free? Who's doing this? And this became an opportunity to build relationship. And where those relationships end up, only God knows. But it wasn't about promoting church or religion, but introducing people to the possibilities that God has in their lives, whether they know it or not. Communion is an act of faith and worship that is an act of relationship that calls us to recognize what God has done and doing and the life that God has given that is already at work in us and through us. When I jumped off the shed with the umbrella, I discovered that probably Mom was right. It was more an absolute than a guideline, that I would hit the ground far harder than I anticipated. But it's one of those things that she learned, I had to learn for myself. And I'm still convinced in the back of my mind that if you have a big enough umbrella, it might be. The God that calls us into his fellowship is a God who invites us to live in relationship with him. And the only way we or anyone else will make sense out of that is by learning it for themselves. We can be those that open the door for relationships to happen. And if that means we plot to kill religion, then I think we've got some work to do. Thanks be to God.